Okay, so just as a disclaimer firsthand, yesterday I spoke about Porsches a lot because, of course, Porsche Club president, but you've seen that 2 weeks ago. Today, we're speaking to a bit of a BMW fanatic. Am I a big fan of BMWs? Probably not. Do I appreciate them? Yes. Can I talk about them? Yes. Do I like it? Probably not. So it's going to be quite an interesting conversation. We have Renzo here, very cool guy, just met, who has the most awesome cars, but we'll chat about that a bit later. He hasn't been on a podcast before, all right?
Yeah, great.
Yeah, first time for everything. And he even doesn't work in the car industry. Usually we shoot with journalists or editors or people who work in the industry, but now we actually have someone who has a massive passion and love for cars, owns great cars, even though he doesn't work in the industry. So it's going to be a bit of a different viewpoint. So I hope you enjoy. Welcome to On The Overrun. This is episode 11 of season 3. Please excuse the notifications. He is a businessman, an entrepreneur, so he's working while we're going. But yeah, Renzo, thanks for joining. Thanks for being here, allowing me into your humble abode.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, Renzo, thanks for joining. Maybe let's start off. Since I'm not a massive BMW fan, what is wrong with Mercedes?
To be honest with you, nothing's wrong with Mercedes. I'm also a fan of Mercedes myself.
Okay.
I'm just a bigger fan of BMW.
Okay.
I wouldn't not have a Merc, but at the moment my current collection is just more BMWs than anything else. Sometimes it's different. Sometimes it's more VWs or Audis or whatever. It chops and changes.
Just
but
preference.
at the moment, BMW is my number one.
Okay, no, I see. I think you also go through stages where at some point Mercedes brings out insane cars and you're like, maybe let's chop and change a bit. You know, it's all down to preference and
Absolutely.
That's totally fine. So maybe let's chat about little young Renzo and how his love for cars started. What are some of the earliest, best memories you've had with cars? And yeah, maybe chat about that.
Cool. Well, I think it's pretty typical. Any child starts with toy cars. They've got that, that carpet with a racetrack on it. And I used to have it looked like a tire, but it was a suitcase that had my toy cars. And I think that's where it started. That's why I remember it from quite a young age. As I got older, it obviously developed into, things with motors, probably bicycles first, and then motorbikes, quad bikes, things like that. And I suppose as you become a little bit older and you're able to afford bigger, better, more expensive toys, that's how it progresses.
Yeah. You mentioned something earlier off camera, which was very interesting. And it's, I think for a lot of petrol, it's also the case. You really want to work in the industry, but necessarily it doesn't give you the ability or resources to actually drive these insane cars. Yeah. Not just, for a week test or whatever, but actually own them and live with them, which is a much more immersive experience. So if money was no object, right, and car industry is the holy grail of, I don't know, monthly salaries, what would you do if you were to work in the car industry?
I would, not one thing. I don't like sticking to one thing. So I'd probably have a one-stop shop, a tuning company, dyno, car customization, visual mods, performance mods. I'd probably even like to develop my own mods, performance and visual, literally everything. I wouldn't want to do one thing. I'd like it all to be in one thing, even detailing, all of those things that I can appreciate. So I'd love that in one big business. If I could, ideal world, massive warehouse, each of these businesses within that same warehouse.
Yes. Okay. No, I like that idea. I think that's a model portrayed in a lot of European car companies.
Yeah.
Companies, like the like of DK Engineering, such, who has storage and restoration and modification. You have all those in one house, which is very cool. Just goes to show your business plan is working. So car industry, of course, it's an interesting topic. A lot of people I speak to is journalists and editors, and they have one kind of view of, how cars go and how cars progress. But I want you to speak a bit about your progression with cars. Where did you start? What was the first car you've ever had? And up until now, you spoke a bit about your love for tuning and modification, and we'll get to that a bit later. But take me through the journey. Where did you start with your cars and where are you now?
So my first ever car, as I feel like most people's first ever car, was a VW Polo 1.6. Naturally aspirated, obviously.
Yes, of course.
That was bought for me by my family when I was 18.
Yeah.
The usual starting low. Obviously, I was very grateful for the car. I loved the car. To be honest with you, I didn't sell that car until last year. I had it as a sentimental piece.
Really?
Yeah, I sold it because of lack of space. Yeah, it was. I love that car. It was. I've got so many memories in that car driving. You know, when you first get your car, you just drive for the sake of driving. Me and my cousin, we used to literally get in the car and drive with no destination for hours, and I loved it.
Yes.
And I still do that to this day, to be honest with you. But obviously, the cars have become slightly better.
So just as an indication, how long did you keep that Polo?
Just about 10 years.
Just about 10 years.
Yeah.
That's interesting. A lot of people also, like, sentimental part, go back to their first cars. I don't know if you're familiar with many like car YouTubers like Shmi or such, but he rebought basically his 1.4 Renault Clio now and he wants to make it in a rally car, which I mean is very cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So from the Polo on, what was your progression from then? What came next?
So there were a few different ones, and I didn't always own the cars. I went through a stage where in my business brain, it was financially viable to lease cars. So there were many cars that I was kind of in and out of. Also because I was quite indecisive, so I didn't know which car I wanted to buy.
Yeah.
So I was in Mercedes A45, AMG, Mercedes C63S, Range Rover Sports, Range Rover SVR. What else was there? BMW 8 Series, which is a bit more recent. Even the i8. I tried almost every car I could until I decided. I think it was actually only this year when I properly started like owning the cars. And the first one, which was this year or late last year, was the 2021 Jeep Trackhawk.
Yes.
Had that car, loved it.
Madness.
This is an absolute animal of a car. And since then, my financial brain that was telling me not to own and lease instead changed around a little bit. So now I buy all my cars. I don't finance them. I purchase them cash. So I own them outright. I don't owe any money on them. And now for me, that's the best way to do it.
Because your cars that you own now are, far off from just stock. It's very much personalized. And we also spoke about this a bit earlier. When it comes to really wanting the cars that you want, you have to own it to be able to personalize it. You have to own it to be able to modify it and such. So where did that modifying, tuning bug kick in?
So the earliest I can remember that being a part of my life is, I specifically remember I was in grade 7 with my friend. His name was Matthew. He was my best friend at the time. We used to get, it might even be before grade 7, we used to get Speed and Sound magazines, pick our car, and then go through the list. They've got the auto style and the different companies that have their list of different mods, and we'd literally in our head build the car. So I want that car with those wheels, with that splitter, with that spoiler, with that engine, and we'd kind of build it there. And I think that's kind of where it came to me for cars. But before then, even with anything I had, I wanted to modify it. If I had a remote control car, I'd spray the wheels black. I'd see what I could do to make it faster or look cooler.
Yeah.
Bicycles, I don't know, whatever we did to make it look cooler or sound cooler or whatever. Yeah. Same when we got quad bikes and motocross bikes, things like that. We were doing whatever we could, changing the filters just to make it more personal. And I feel like that's kind of stuck with me. Okay.
No, that's very cool. I think for me, so interesting, I don't even own a car. So I drove here with my mom's car. Still going with, I think hopefully next year I'll get my first one. But for me, tuning and modifying is very cool, but I'm almost so scared of the risk side of it, like it going wrong, or because some modifications are great and some are simpler or I guess in some ways smaller than others. Like let's say you do chip tuning, I mean you can quickly replace or change that up, but when it comes to stuff like forging engines or I don't know, a bit more, mechanical, substantial change. I think that scares me a bit. Okay. So did you, I guess, go through the progression of starting lightly with mods and then just going on to a bit more heavy stuff with the cars you have now, or how does that look for you? What do you feel about it?
So, yes and no. So obviously I've always understood the concept of, kind of starting slowly, starting with the most basic things, and that's probably where I would recommend somebody who was planning on doing it, starting with, doing small things, exhaust, intake, downpipe, whatever it may be. But the most important element in that is actually just choosing the right guys to do it for you. There's a lot of fly-by-night people in the industry, in the tuning game. I don't know if you know, but I'm actually sponsored by Tweak Performance and ATM Chip Tuning.
Okay.
So the reason I've gone to them is because I've tried a lot of other places, and not to badmouth other companies, but in my opinion, ATM is the best. They're obviously agents for Tweak, so Tweak supplies the parts, ATM does the installation, all the tuning and everything like that, and we've kind of got a perfect little synergy going. So as soon as you find the right company, the right guys to do your work, and you trust them fully, because trust is a big factor in the game, then you're kind of good to go. Because realistically, you have to trust them, because if you don't really know that much about cars and mechanics, they can say they've done something if they actually haven't done it, and you wouldn't really know the better.
Yeah.
So I want to go to a guy I don't have to check up on their work. If they tell me it's done, then I know it's done.
Yeah.
You saw the video call. Now my tuner phoned me. He was showing me, this is broken, this is what we're putting on the car. He doesn't need to do it because I trust him fully, but he still does it. It's just an extra peace of mind.
Yeah. It's that transparency that actually just gives you that, edge. Okay, cool. I trust this guy. This guy knows what he's doing, but he also cares about his clients. He has to. He has no other choice. Otherwise, he'll go out of business quite quickly.
Exactly.
Now, something I know zero about is when it comes to the second-hand market for modified cars.
Yep.
Do you have any experience or expertise regarding that? Like, how do modified and tuned cars handle in the second-hand market? Do they actually keep their value, or people, I don't know, a bit scared to actually go into that? Or
so it's a very niche market, but for the everyday man on the streets, a modified car would hold less value. As soon as you modify your car, it does technically, even though the parts may cost X amounts over the value of the car, it's still technically going to devalue your car. Unless, under certain circumstances. For example, if you've got a BMW, like a M3 with a BMW approved Akrapovic exhaust, that can add to the value because it doesn't affect your motor plan. It's BMW approved, so it's kind of seen as acceptable. But if you've got that exact same exhaust made by another company that wasn't BMW approved, it would lose value.
Okay.
So it's kind of relative to the industry, to the brand.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So for you, you also mentioned that when it comes to a modified car and personalizing it to your taste, it's about making the most rowdy, shouty, mad cars you get on the road.